Hello, welcome to our next section. Here we'll be looking at declaring variables and constants. Now, variables in Swift is also similar to other programming languages. It's just a container used to hold a value. It's just like a container that holds stuffs inside, like a container can hold a car. Container B can hold building materials. Container C can hold a tank. Container D can hold another different thing, maybe baby wears and all that. Also, you can see it in such a way of like, let me say a cup. I mean, we have three cups. First cup can hold a Lipton. Second cup water. Third cup Coke. The fourth cup Fanta. Now the cup can be labeled cup A, B, or cup Lipton, cup water, cup Coke, cup Fanta. So now these names are just the names used to identify the cups. Now the liquids inside each of the four cups are now the data. Now and also you see the data or the value inside the cups have types. Now you see now the data in the first cup is of Lipton, the second one is of water, the fourth one is of Coke, and the third one is of Coke, and the fourth one is of Fanta. Now, this is the same thing we do in Swift programming languages and also in all any other programming languages we have around. Now, the variables are just used to hold values. That's that. Just like in our real world situation, we have containers to hold stuffs, like bags to hold our pots to hold things, even our car, pots to hold our food. So whatever the pot now is a variable, and whatever value you have inside is now the data or the value we have inside. Now let's represent our real world examples like the three cups now in our Swift programming languages. Now let's declare the first variable. First, we use the let keyword. Now to explain keyword, I've used keyword severally at the beginning of this our course. Now to explain what keyword is just a reserved word solely meant for Swift. So we cannot use the keyword anywhere like to name our variables or that. They are just special words or special text that perform a certain function in our C programming language. So they are just reserved. Like, hey, this group of words are things that Swift uses and the programmer cannot use it at all. So now to declare a variable, and this let is one of the keyword, the reserved word or keyword. You can call it that a reserved word, or simple, you can call it a keyword. So it's one of the keyword used when declaring a variable to hold a value. So now this let is telling the our computer that we want to hold that we're declaring a value and we want to hold it. And now this variable that we are declaring is immutable, meaning it cannot change. Now after writing the let, now you give a space, then this will be followed by the name of the variable. Now the name of the variable, let's write it like cup Lipton. So you see now the color of this let and color of this cup Lipton changes. Now this let is kind of like pinkish red, and this is sky blue or something like that. So this is what the code editor does to differentiate between reserved keywords and the normal words we are using, or names of variables or functions, classes, structures, and any other data types. So this, whenever you see this color in a word in Swift, to tell you that this is a reserved keyword. So now this is a non-reserved keyword. So now this is not the name of the variable. The next thing we need to is followed by the equal sign. Now this equal sign is telling computer that this variable will hold something at this right hand side. Now whatever value we need to put here can be of any data type that we have seen, like an integer, that means a number, text, that means a string, boolean, structure, class, or function. Whatever data at all we want it to hold, either an array, tuple, dictionary, or set. So for now, let us make it to hold a string, which is now a Lipton tea. So this is a text. So by this we have declared a variable in Swift. We can either add this semicolon or not, like we have learned. It's not a must. We add this semicolon if we want to add statements in a single line. So by doing this, we have declared a variable in Swift. What we did here was we started by this let keyword followed by the name of the variable, then this equal sign, and then the right hand side telling this variable what it holds. So now this cup lifting variable holds this text lifting t, so that whenever we reference this cup lifting t, we are pointing to this text. So now whenever we are now moving our cup of lifting about, we are moving our lifting about. So this is essentially what happens here. And this let tells computer that this cup of lifting cannot change. So this is the value, and this is the name used to represent this value at the right hand side. So whenever we use this cup lifting, we are just referencing this. So what we did here is just simple as this. But instead of writing this, we are now using this to represent this. So we don't need to be carrying this up and down in our code. So whenever we want to use the lifting t, we'll write this. So instead of that, we stored it inside this variable cup-lifton, and whenever we need to use this, we just need to just use this, and whatever we are doing will access this. Now let us print this. So we copy it and paste it here. So what we're essentially doing here, like I said, is we are just referencing this. So this print statement passing this cup lifting inside is just like doing this. Yeah, so let's change it back to cup lifton and run. So you see it prints our lifting t. Now we can replace it with the value and run it again. You see a cup lifting t opens up. So this is a simple way on how to declare variables. Now let's declare another cup. Now let's declare cup water. First, we will need to specify if we want the variable to be mutable or immutable. That means that we don't want it to be changed, or we want it to be changed later on in the program. Now, this water, we need it to be changed, so we use the var keyword. This var keyword is used to set an mutable variable. So we now say cup water now holds our water. So these are the two ways in which we can declare variables. Here we declared a constant, and here we declared a non-constant variable. So this cup lifton can be called a constant variable, while this is just a variable. Both of them are variables, and both of them are two different ways in which we can declare variables in Swift. This is a constant, it cannot change, but this can change. This is a variable, this is a variable, and also we can move about the name of the variable cup water, and it will still do the same thing. Now let me print. So you see it prints out the value we have in this. So it's not only string that we can assign to a variable, we can also assign any other data types. Like we can assign number. Now let's start. Let can now say login attempt 0. So you see this holds a number and it's immutable. This is a variable login attempt, holds a number. Now we can also assign boolean. Let me say is logged in. I'll just say true. So this is a variable and it holds a boolean variable or a boolean value. So also we can do with other data types we have in Swift. We can now assign other data types. For example, we can assign a tuple. Now let me say call here a tuple. Hello world. So this is a variable and it holds a tuple. So this is basically how we declare variables in Swift. I hope you understood this. This is how we declare. So whenever we use this let keyword, this becomes a constant. We cannot change this at all. We can't change this. Let's try changing it. You will see Completon changing it to, let me just say, it cannot, because it's a constant. So you see, cannot assign value to is a let constant. So this is a constant. We cannot change it at all. So we just need to leave it as it is. This is a non-constant, so we can change it. So you see, we have changed it. So whatever code that runs before this reassignment, this cup water will hold this value. But after this, the value held by this will be changed from this water to this, so that whatever we use it here, it will now print out this instead of this. Now, this cup water, this print here, this print statement written on this cup water will print out this instead of this water. Now let's try it. So you see here, because it changed here, and we use the change in using this assign symbol. So this symbol is used to assign a value to a variable. So when we did this, we told computer, or what we did was just now assign, make the value of this variable to hold this string, so that when we printed it out, it printed out this. So it now this changed the value of this from water to this value. Now, if we move a print statement in between them, this cup water will print out this water, because as at here, it had not changed. The thing changed after this print statement. The value changed after this print statement. So after this, we no longer this will no longer see water, but cup of water. So now let's print it out. Let's run it. So you see the here saw this water. That's why we saw this print here. Then after the change, using this assignment operator, we now we're now seeing the value of the cup water, which is this here now. So from here downwards, this cup water will contain this instead of this water. So this is how we declare variables and constants in Swift programming language. Now there's another feature in declaring variables and constants that we need to know again. And let me clear this. With variable declaration, you can leave out the value like this, but you must add the type annotation. The type annotation means is that you must tell Swift what this variable represents, the type of data it is going to hold, either a string, a number, a boolean, structure, a double, floating point numbers, and all that. So we need to specify it. So to do that, to declare the type this will hold, because this cup water will hold a string, so we'll remove this and add a colon here, then a space followed by the name of the data type. Now in this case, string. So this we have declared, we just declared a variable without initialization. Initialization means assigning a value to it. So you see, we can declare a non-constant variable without initializing it with a value, and this still works. So we're not telling computer that we will store a value here, quite alright, but there's no value here. Then that value will be of type a string. So what this says that we will store a string here, a text inside this variable later on in our program. So this is one way also of how to declare variables without initialization. Then we can come down here and now initialize it with a value. So it works. Without initializing a value here, we must tell Swift the type of the data type this variable we hold. Now, since this is a string, whatever that is here must be a string. It must not be another data type, like let me say an integer. We'll have an error because, as we said in the beginning of this course, that Swift programming language is statically typed, meaning you must tell Swift the type of data or value the variable or a data is or will hold. So this is a string, and therefore it must hold a string. It must not hold any other data value that is not of type string. So if you pass boolean here, it will fail. This must be a string. Otherwise, we will convert this to string. But whatever value is here must be of data type string. So that's how declaring value works in JavaScript. And also another thing we need to consider is naming convention. Whatever you are naming or the name you are giving to your variable should correspond to whatever job that it is doing. Now we name this variable cup water. We can just call it cup of water. The name is not so name cup of water. The programmer okay now knows that okay this variable is just something to tell us that this variable will hold something water, a string water inside it. So it gives you idea of the value that should be there. Now, the name of the variable naming convention doesn't concern the Swift. All it does is that it just sees this and assigns the value here. In fact, during compilation and interpretation, it can even change it to something or reader, something like this, I, and that's it. So this naming convention is just for developers to understand our code at a glance without looking at the logic to figure out what this is actually doing. So with just the name of the variable, can I figure out that okay, now this holds a string water. Now we can do something like this, login attempt like this. So we can figure it out without looking at the logic, okay, that this holds the number of login attempts that have been made in the system. So when we have something like this, so you see the name, it tells us that okay, this variable is a boolean flag that is holding, making a check if the person is married or not. We can simply change the name to I to just a single something like this. It still works, the logic still works, but this does not tells us anything. So it's confusing. For you now to know what this ij does, you need to go through the logic, which is time consuming, to now figure it out that okay, this I holds water. Okay, this is just for the login attempt that have been tried in our system, and this k is just to know if the person is married or not. So you see, it took a long time to discover what these variables are doing, but with the names, like having close like an English grammar of what the variable does, it becomes very easier for developers and also for you to decipher what they do without looking at the logic, and it makes your code readable, scalable, and also maintainable. Now, also talking about conventions, whenever we declare, sometimes whenever you declare an outside constant like this, now let me say you're having a max size of name, max size name length that just hold the maximum number of length 90. Now this works, but sometimes to tell that something is a constant, it is usually said that all the letters should be of uppercase letters and then with underscores in between. Like now we have max name length. So max, what is the previous name? The max size name length, right? So it now said naming convention said that this should be in uppercase, whereas and also underscores being in between the capital letter starting each word. So we can now convert it to this. Also, it makes sense to tell you that this is a constant without actually looking at the let keyword here. So you see, so looking at this, you know that this is a constant. Without looking at this, even giving this let or this let coming into focus, that this is a constant. So this is just a naming convention to make them capital letters and underscores dividing the words in the English grammar. So now this just tells the programmer at a glance that this is a constant. There is another aspect of Swift programming declaration of variables and constants that we need to understand. Now look at here, we are declaring the variable and initializing them with values. Now in Swift, we can skip the values and initialize them later, but we must add their types. So to add the types, we start by the colon and then the name of the data type. So the name of the data type for this comp Lipton is string. The same thing, we do the same thing here. So you see it goes away. Without this type declaration, now we have an error. So this is telling Swift that we are declaring a constant here, we are declaring a variable here, but we will set their value before we use any of them. So this is a constant, this is a variable, this can't be changed, but this can be changed. Now, unlike JavaScript, whereby you must initialize the value of a constant, it's not the same thing here in Swift. You can omit the initialization of a value to a constant at later time. So you can just declare the variable, the constant variable, and then initialize it later time. But when it is set, you cannot change it again. So the same thing with this variable, you can now change it anyhow you want in subsequent times in your Swift program. So we can now come down here and now set the value Lipton T. So this sets the value to this constant to have this value. So now this is declaration while this is initialization. Then you can put two of them together like this. So this is declaration and also this is initialization. So you can declare a constant without a value first, then but whenever it is set in the later time, that value can be set again. So now we cannot come down here and set the value. We can't, it will have an error here. So once it is set here, a constant, it cannot be changed. But now a variable like the cup water, we can set it here and then change it at a later time again, and it works. So this is a variable, this is a constant. All of them are still constant. So you can call this a constant variable, or this is just a variable. Now the next thing we have to note is that whenever we add the type annotation to this, we cannot change the value or the data type of the value assigned. So the value of this must be a string and the value of this must be a string. If we set another type that is not of value string, which is set here, we will now have an error. Then also we can use the comma uh, operator to merge these two lines the same, or let me convert this to var. Then we can use the comma operator to merge the two lines together, provided they are of the same variable. But if here is let and here is var, we can't do that. So to add these two lines at the same line, what we do is we copy it, or we remove this, come here, put comma, then add the Lipton, then set the data type. This works. You see, we do not have any error here. So we can set the same variables in the same line in Swift using the comma operator. Now, if this Lipton is an int, we can change it to an int. here, so it still work. So what we just did is just like to set the variable name. Now we want to set another variable in the same line, then we add comma followed by the name of the variable and then the type annotation. We can do the initialization straight in here without doing it at a later time. So you see, we can do it like this and it still works. Then also another thing you need to know when uh, adding variable names is that constant and variables names, they can't contain white space characters like white space like this. No, it does not work. And also mathematical symbols can be there, arrows, and also private use Unicode scalar values or line or box drawing characters can be used whenever you are naming your variables. But also you can use emojis to name your variable. Like now, let me use an emoji. Where do I see it? Emoji. Okay, now let me just copy off an emoji from the internet. Emoji, let me say laugh. I have this emoji here now. Let me copy it. Then you see I can use it here. See, I can use an emoji here and say laugh and it will work. So you see we have no error here. Now let me print it. Can now print the emoji and we'll run our Swift code and you see we see it here. Now also we can use some symbols like the pi and even Chinese characters. Now let me use the pi this thing symbol. Let me search it here. Pi symbol. Let me just see the pi symbol. Now look at it here. Let me copy it from here. Very good. Now I can declare. Say let's. So you can just use it to say pi and say pi is 3.14. So we can print it and run and you see it works. So we can use emojis and some mathematical symbols in Swift and they will run very well. Now let me clear this up. Remember we said that reserved keywords can be used anywhere at all. They are especially reserved for use in Swift programming. But Swift enables us to use a reserved keyword as a variable name, provided they are in between ticks. Ticks are this. So now we can use, let me say, let's just set a variable let, and then we want, in some cases, that we are forced to use let also as the variable name. Now to do that, we can't do this and say let 90. We can't do this, it will fail. So Swift says that we can come here, add a tick here, and add a tick here. And it will work. You see our error goes away and then when we print it, we'll add a tick, say let, and then when we print, we'll see the value here. So now we're now basically using let keyword, but now surrounding it with the backticks and it will work. So we're now using the let keyword as a variable name and it's working very well with you. So that's one of the advantages we have whenever we are working with Swift programming language. So coming to this, we can only use the same variable. Now we cannot declare and also add a constant. We will have an error. So whatever variables we are declaring the same line must be of the same keyword, either var or let. So this can either be a variable or a constant. So we can also declare a constant in the same line. Let me say max size and then say max name length, then say is married. True. So you see, we are not declaring constants in the same line using the help of this comma operator. So you see it, with the help of this comma operator, we declare these three three constants in the same line using this comma. We can also omit the value and it will also work. Now, whenever we omit the value, then remember we must add the type notation, because omitting the type annotation and also initialization does not tell us the data type of this variable. So we must add it to tell Swift that this is an int, a string, boolean, double, integer, or whatever data type we want it to be.